So continue to recite the mantra quietly to yourself. And so normally, as we always say, when you recite the 6-syllable Mani mantra, do so within a state of love and compassion. So it is said that recite the 6 syllables for the sake of all kind mothers. Recite the 6 syllables for sentient beings tormented by suffering. Recite the 6 syllables for your hated enemies. Recite the 6 syllables for your kind friends. Recite the 6 syllables to purify your own obscurations. And recite the 6 syllables to accumulate merit. So in this way, for this purpose, recite the 6-syllable mantra without any distraction in your mind. And it is said, actually, Dorzin Rinpoche, Seminans Dorzin Rinpoche had said that in his teachings on the Mani mantra, he said that the 6-syllable Mani mantra is the essence of all the Buddha Dharma. And we can also say that the 6 syllables are the Buddha. So if you recite the 6-syllable mantra without distraction, then all the Dharma is included within that. Of course, if you are distracted, then the power is not so great. So then recite the 6-syllable mantra with immeasurable and sincere love, and recite the 6-syllable mantra with immeasurable compassion. Recite the 6-syllable mantra with immeasurable joy. Recite the 6-syllable mantra with immeasurable equanimity. If you recite the 6-syllable mantra while training your mind in the 4 immeasurables, then really within that practice, all the Buddha Dharma is complete. So then the benefits, of course, are inconceivable. So the Mani mantra, so the 4 immeasurables are the essence of the Mani mantra. And if I recite the Mani mantra without distraction, then within that state, the 4 immeasurables are complete. So today, of the 4 immeasurables, we continue the teachings on the immeasurable joy. And so in brief, in terms of joy, from a worldly perspective, joy basically means to become happy in one's mind, to just feel happy. And from a Dharma perspective, immeasurable joy arises if one accomplishes the benefit of others in a vast sense. So as the last couple of days, we talked about immeasurable love and needing to cultivate immeasurable love for sentient beings. And then on the basis of that, immeasurable compassion. And now on the basis of that, then arises immeasurable joy. And so Chikten Sumgön had said that the feeling of love is like when you see a cute baby. And the feeling of compassion is like when you see someone sick with leprosy. And the feeling of joy, immeasurable joy, is the feeling you have when you meet someone who you love and whom you haven't seen for a long time, and you meet them again. So this term that is used here is like a virtuous friend, like a close companion. So you can, that could be a teacher, a spiritual teacher. It could also be a friend, someone very close to you, someone whom you love very much. And if you haven't seen someone who you love very much for a long time, and then one day you meet again, you feel so happy. So for example, imagine if there's your guru whom you're so devoted to, if you meet him again, of course, how will you feel? You will feel so happy. So that's that feeling of immeasurable joy. So in brief, it is the joy that arises when, so here in this context now, it's the joy that arises when we see that others are doing well. So whether that's a friend of yours or not, but if now someone has a good heart, someone with a good heart, and someone who has a good heart and sees that others are doing well and others are happy, they will just naturally be happy about that. And so that is what we call joy or immeasurable joy. So we need to make an effort in cultivating immeasurable joy. And so now, every morning, Dorzin Rinpoche has been teaching us the 4 yogas of Mahamudra according to the tantric path. Then according to the sutra path, we have the 4 immeasurables. If you really think about it, actually the meaning is really the same. It is just that the 4 yogas are more speaking from like a high advanced level of practice. Or we can say the ultimate and the relative. So the 4 yogas would be the ultimate, and then the 4 immeasurables would be the relative. But we need to begin with that. So we first must train the mind in stages, starting with love and then compassion and then joy, until we reach each level. So this is how we are first purifying our mind slowly according to the sutra path. So then we come to immeasurable joy. And so if someone already is at a high level of practice, that is someone who has seen the nature of the mind, when one realizes the nature of the mind, one reaches the first bhumi called extreme joy, like perfect joy. Because when one sees the nature of the mind, then an immeasurable joy arises. So now for us beginning practitioners, we start with aspiration. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness and so on. So we rejoice when others experience happiness. We feel happy when others experience happiness. And whoever that is, anyone. And so this is not an easy task because we are all tied down by our karmas and our afflictive emotions. So in our minds are filled with different emotions. We are angry, we are jealous, and so on. And so for this reason, because we are filled with affliction, when we see the happiness of others, then it's very difficult for us to really sincerely feel the joy. It's easy to say that, like when somebody says it, oh, you have to be happy somebody's doing really well. It's easy to say that's wonderful, but then if you really actually point the finger at yourself, so to speak, really look at your own mind. If you think about, take an honest look at yourself, then you'll see that to cultivate really sincere joy is a little bit difficult. So even actually when it comes to those who are close to us, even if it's our parents or our friends, we still naturally have a sense of competitiveness, and sometimes a little bit of jealousy arises. And so for this reason, when we then see that others are doing well, it's actually a little bit difficult for us to just really feel joyful about that, really feel the joy. Nevertheless, we have to make an effort in cultivating joy, in really training the mind, habituating the mind to it. So now we are on the path of learning. So therefore, we have to form a habit in every small point that we go through. We have to train the mind in that. We cannot expect that immediately we just go straight to the high level of emptiness or of Mahamudra and so on. That will be difficult. So in order to get there, we first have to transform our mind. And to transform our mind, we have to make an effort in cultivating this joy when we witness the happiness of others. And so, for example, when an afflictive emotion arises, for example, you get a little bit jealous, then you should change that instantly. So, for example, when you see somebody else doing well, then normally we immediately feel a little bit jealous. So then you should kind of catch yourself and recognize that's not okay, because I'm someone who practices immeasurable joy. Shouldn't I rejoice in that? So you should kind of remind yourself that way, because we are practitioners who want to cultivate immeasurable joy for the happiness of all sentient beings. And so therefore, at first we need to make an effort. And so then what do we kind of visualize or have in mind when we cultivate immeasurable joy? So when we cultivate immeasurable joy, we think of all sentient beings. And so when we think of all sentient beings, we wish for all sentient beings to be happy and to experience unchanging happiness. So now if you have this mind thinking, may all beings always be happy, then you have already some understanding of the four immeasurables. And so when we want sentient beings to be happy, then we also want them to have the causes of happiness. And so for this reason, when sentient beings create the causes of happiness, then we should also rejoice in that. And this is actually a really important point. So when other people engage in positive activity, are doing good things, then we should always rejoice in that. We should always be happy about that. So when one is a person who has a good heart and who has cultivated the four immeasurables, and that's how you would think. But then the moment you think that way, actually, what happens in your own mind is that afflictive emotions naturally are stopped by thinking in that way. But then, so normally our negative emotions, our jealousy and our competitiveness, why do these actually arise? Because we all know that they're wrong. We know we don't want to have those feelings, but they still arise. It's not easy to give them up. And the reason is because the mind just can't stay still. The mind has to go out somewhere. So the mind kind of has to pursue something, has to follow something. So we either can go after a good thing or a bad thing. But anyways, we kind of we always need to go after something. We just can't stay not going after anything, unless, of course, one has a really excellent practice. And so since we always have to go after something, then it would be better, of course, to go after something that's positive. And so that is when we see other people doing good things, then that's positive. So we should rejoice in that. Or we see other people are learning the Dharma, studying the Dharma. You should feel that's wonderful. Or somebody's practicing the Dharma, that's wonderful. Or somebody is being generous, or somebody is practicing discipline, or somebody is being diligent, or somebody is very patient. So in brief, whatever good anybody does, you should rejoice in that and think that that's wonderful. They're doing good. So in brief, whatever it is and whoever, whether it's other people or some other community and so on, whatever good is being done, we need to rejoice in that. So if you rejoice in that, then that's what we call cultivating immeasurable joy. So because our mind constantly has to think about something. If it's not one thing, it's the other. We definitely have to think about something. We can't just stay not thinking about something. And so since we anyway have to think about something, so it would be better to think about something positive. So therefore, when you see others doing well, then rejoice in that. If others become happy, then rejoice in that. Or for example, think of another family and their child. So if the child of a different family is studying really well, learning really well in school, so even if your own child is not doing so great, but if you see somebody else's child doing really well in school, then you should also rejoice in that and think that this is wonderful. This child is studying so well. And so we really have to think that way, because this is something that we don't usually do. So when your own child to begin with is not doing so well, and then on top of that, another child is doing really well in school, sometimes we're not too happy about that, are we? And so when that happens, we need to change our mind gradually. and just keep thinking about it. When you see another child doing well, then just think that's what's wonderful. Or if somebody else gets a good job, or their child gets a good job, then be happy about that. Of course, if your own child gets a good job, then you can be happy about that too. But if not, then that's also karma. In any case, also when the child doesn't want to study, that's karma. So when you see in a different family, they're just more successful and they're doing really well, child is studying really well and so on, rejoice in that. Or for example, you see a family, they're really harmonious, everybody's getting along, rejoice in that and think that this is the kindness of the three jewels. May they always be harmonious like that. So that's what we call joy, cultivating joy. And so as you cultivate such joy, your mind becomes increasingly more pure. This is how the Dharma purifies your mind. So each of the four immeasurables actually purifies your mind. And so generally all the Dharma really, they are just different ways of purifying the mind. But one way is to cultivate this immeasurable joy or rejoicing. And so slowly, when you just keep forming this habit and keep rejoicing whenever you see somebody else is doing well, just feel that's wonderful, then that will gradually purify your own mind. So when you feel that others be happy, when you rejoice in others' happiness, then you feel happy in that moment, don't you? There's a happy feeling to that when you feel joyful when others experience happiness. So this is how I feel happy. And if you're happy, isn't that the essence of life? The meaning of life is happiness. So therefore, if you're able to generate that, then your life has become meaningful. We speak normally about this meaning of life, and we have all the conditions. So first of all, we have found the precious human body, and also we have encountered the holy Dharma, all of us. And we have also met with a guru, and we know about karma, what to do and what not to do. So if you really think about it, actually, we are quite doing really well. We can be quite happy about that. So then sometimes, of course, things don't always work out. Sometimes our activities are not so successful, or we are feeling sick, or we have other problems or financial problems and so on. So things sometimes don't really work out. But all of these things are just temporary, short-term conditions. Really on the root, we are actually doing really well. We are happy. And you have to recognize that. Because then when you can recognize that, then you will be able to accept whatever your circumstance is in life. So if you're wealthy, if you're rich, then you would think that's the kindness of the three jewels. It's the result of having accumulated merit in previous lives. And if you have a problem, then you recognize that's because I have not accumulated merit in a previous life. So this is just how it works. There's no need to be sad about it. All in all, I'm still very fortunate with body and mind in this human existence. And that gives me an opportunity to do good. Even if I'm not doing so well right now, I can do good. So even if I'm not rich, even if you're not rich, you can still do good things. You can rejoice in the happiness of others. And when you rejoice in that, then again, your life has become meaningful. So basically, we can say that there are two things that make this human existence meaningful. The first is that the first meaning of life, the first meaning of life is you want to be happy in this life. You need to be happy. So you need to make your mind be happy. Just be happy no matter no matter what your circumstance, because on the root, you are fortunate. And then the second one is that then also we have to think about our future lives and creating the causes of happiness in the future, which is virtue or merit. So then you do as much as you can of that. And if you have those two, then you really have brought meaning to this human existence. And so you shouldn't go into either extreme. So on the one hand, you shouldn't be too attached to only this life, because this life is also just temporary. It's not just about being happy in this life, of course. And so if you think that I just want to be happy in this life and I don't really care about future lives and virtue, and of course that's a big mistake. So that if you do that, then of course then that again will make the mind the life meaningless. So of course also you have to think about the next life. But on the other hand, then if you only think about the next life, not at all about this life, then it could also happen that you put your body and mind through a lot of suffering, a lot of hardship. And so if your trust in karma is completely firm, then of course that will be okay. But if your trust in karma is not firm from deep within, and you put yourself through all this trouble, then you will just feel unhappy. You will not feel joyful about that eventually. So if your trust in karma is not completely deep, then you shouldn't actually put yourself through all these hardships with body and mind, because eventually you will feel, you will suffer. It will lead to suffering, and you will be in pain. And when you're in pain, when you suffer, then you will feel unhappy in your mind. And when you're unhappy, when you're in a negative state, then you will accumulate negative karma. And so that's why you shouldn't go to that extreme. This morning, Rinpoche also said that we shouldn't fall into either of the two extremes. So basically, what we shouldn't be too attached to this life. But so we shouldn't just be completely distracted by just all the pleasures of this life. And on the other hand, you also shouldn't completely give up everything, our body and mind, just for the Dharma, just thinking about next life and totally neglecting and putting the body and mind through a lot of too much hardship, because that could also be counterproductive. And so therefore we shouldn't go to that extreme either. But so one thing you can do to bring joy, even if you don't put yourself through hardships, is to rejoice. So first of all, you can be happy in whichever situation you're in your life. And so we're not speaking about being wealthy and having everything you want, speaking about the happiness of the mind. And when you rejoice in the happiness of others, then you are actually happy. And then, of course, at the same time, you're also creating the causes for happiness for future lifetimes. So if you do that, then your life really has become meaningful. So that also implies that in your family, for example, make the best of it when with the life that you have together with your spouse or your family, your children, and so on. Whoever you live together with, don't get angry at them. Don't fight with them. This is really an important point, because you don't know how much time you have left with them. Nobody knows that, because when things happen, when impermanence strikes, it strikes suddenly. There's no warning. So it could be tomorrow, who knows? And we don't know how much time we have with each other. So however much time we have, spend this time happy with each other and harmonious, get along with each other, because no one knows tomorrow will we still be together or will we already be separated. Nobody knows, do we have a day together, have a week or a year together? Nobody knows that. However long we have, spend this time in happiness as much as you can. And so then if there are certain situations where you're just not getting along with somebody and so on, or there's different disagreements, and then try to just change that on your part. But really think that all this fighting and arguing really is really useless, because I don't know how much time I have with them. So I have to spend this time, the little time that I have, happily. And so in this way, if you have that in your mind, then you will begin to consider other people. You will begin to consider each other. You will be able to be more patient with each other. So thinking this way, when you're together with your family, and if you are able to think this way, then even if you live a householder's life, then it is fine. Then you have created happiness. This is a happy family. So in this way, practice merit and rejoice in any virtuous activity. Just have this positive mind that just wishes to benefit others, to bring joy to others. And when others do well, then be happy about that. And so if you always have this positive state of mind and you're always happy, then just naturally your whole environment, your surrounding will naturally be pleasant, will be happy. So think about that. So it's really something that comes from the mind. It doesn't really come, this joy, this happiness. It doesn't come from anything, any external possessions. So even if someone, it might be really rich and have many things, if they're constantly fighting and they're never getting along, and they're never happy. If in your mind you're constantly having all kinds of fears and hopes and so many afflictive emotions, then even though you at some times maybe you practice some virtue, it will not be so powerful actually. And so a very important point for this is contentment. So the Buddha Dharma makes that a very important point. It's extremely important to be content. And so that means no matter what it is, whatever is your circumstance, be content with it. So, for example, whether your appearance is beautiful or not, whatever it is, whatever you have naturally, be happy with it, be content with it. Or whether you are rich or not, whatever you have, be happy with that, whatever it is. Or whether or not you have many friends, whoever you have, be happy with that, be content with that. So if you're just content with whatever it is that you have, that's your situation, then your mind will always be, I'm happy. And so why do you feel happy? You really feel happy because you are content. So if you think in this way, then you see how you can really create your happiness. And there's always a way. For example, as we said, whenever you see somebody else doing something good, you can always be happy about that. You can always rejoice in that. And so if you are able to do that, then really you can actually say that you have really found the meaning of this human existence, of this human life.